the computer here at the Weather Service says it's 10:02 a.m. So I think it's time to start our July New Mexico Drought Monitoring Workgroup call. And this time I am in Albuquerque for this meeting, and we've got a few folks here. So we're going to go around the call and see who's online. So go ahead.
Susan Rich, New Mexico State Forestry.
Les Owen, New Mexico Department of Ag.
Dave Hefner, National Weather Service in El Paso.
Carl McClellan.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Sailing Maria, USGS.
Carl McClellan, Navajo Nation.
Mary Yule, BLM.
Curtis McFadden, Army Corps of Engineers, Albuquerque District.
All right, is that everybody online? So we'll go around the room here in the Weather Service office.
Julie Valdez, Office of the State Engineer.
Molly Magnuson, the Office of the State Engineer.
Sean Bennett, National Weather Service. Ryan Geyer, National Weather Service.
And Dave Dubois here. So we're going to get started if you're ready, Brian.
Yes.
Can everybody see the PowerPoints, the go-to? Any problems? I guess that's a good sign. So go ahead, Brian.
Okay, so I'll get started here with our July 28th meeting. Behind this here. Okay. So, well, it's been a good several months here, the past basically 6 months, even into the end of last year. So let's just start out and talk about how July has panned out so far. The image on the upper left is the monthly precipitation. The image on the lower right is the departure from normal for the first 25 days of July. So again, a lot of areas across New Mexico seeing above normal precipitation. During this time of year, we do see more of that convective nature to the precipitation. So there are a couple areas that haven't received their average precipitation for the month. So it's kind of like the haves and have-nots as we go into the convective season. But overall, by the end of the month or by the end of the summer, we'll see things kind of average out. So the Northeast most recently has been a little bit drier, but still there's been quite a bit of precipitation across the state. Let's go back to June. So we're looking at the June 2015 precipitation. The statewide average was 1.75 inches, which was 150% above normal. Again, the image on the left is the monthly precipitation. The bottom right is the departure from average. So one thing to note here is up on the upper left, while the precipitation amounts across the west are not nearly as high as they are across the east, the departures from average are significant, like over 200 to 300% of normal. That's because during the month of June, that's typically like a really hot and dry period for the Four Corners into Arizona. And eastern New Mexico generally sees good precipitation during the month of June. So while the averages aren't all that extraordinary, still good precipitation during the month of June. And we'll go through these the charts here that we typically show. This is the precipitation. Actually, that says for May, but it should be June. This is the first time, let's see, that the precipitation has been above normal since 2005, and it's the wettest month since 1993. So again, doing quite well, and it was the 8th wettest June on record. If we break it down by climate division, this is usually what we show, kind of a map of SCIP. I'm having issues with actually trying to get the screen captures from them because they're using a new Google Earth platform. So it's hard for me to zoom in, so I'm just trying to break down the 30, 90, and 100-day periods by climate division and just sort of show some tables here. And the takeaway message is every single climate division has been above normal for the 1 month to 6 month period, except for Climate Division 7 and Climate Division 5, but still the numbers look pretty good. And that's just in the last 30 days. Some really impressive numbers for Climate Division 1, like I said, for June, that 330% of normal is extraordinary. And then the 90 and 100-day period looking very good. So that's really, alleviated drought conditions across a good portion of the state. Here are the legacy maps that Deirdre puts together. This is the first 6 months. Lots of green and blue. That's great. Above normal precipitation across just about the entire area, especially across the eastern plains and parts of southern New Mexico as well. So the calendar year now stands at 160% of normal. And that is the wettest 6-month period going all the way back to 1941, which was the record year for New Mexico. If conditions continue this way, we've had a lot of work to do to get to 1941, but this is still really good for us in the short term, and it's now the 4th wettest 6-month period on record. Looking at the legacy maps for the water year, again, conditions improving, 134% of normal, just about everybody above normal for the water year. And again, the CPC chart showing conditions above normal, the first time since 2010, and the last time we saw conditions this wet for the water year was back in 2005. Going through the 12-month period, we're the 10th wettest now at 132% of normal. The 24-month period, we're looking good, above normal statewide, with 18th wettest on record. Now, once we go to the 36-month period, that's where we start pulling in some of the, that 2012 year that was really dry across the state, so a below normal precipitation statewide, but just barely at 97% of normal. In the longer term, here on the bottom, we've got the 48 months and the 60 months, still quite dry. Now, as we progress through time, we're going to start dropping some of those other really dry years, so it's going to start looking better. We recently started importing some of those graphics that we've been showing in NASA Sport, the soil moisture. Usually these were like a CONUS scale. You were seeing the entire United States. Well, we now have the ability to look at those in our software system here at the National Weather Service. And so I can zoom into the images better, and we've got a lot more data that we can look at. And so what I'm showing you here is the deep soil moisture that goes down from the surface to 200 centimeters. This is the 1-month change. So this is since the last time we met. And the colors in green are where conditions are wetter than they were last month at this time. So the values are in percent, and so generally it's like 5 to 10% wetter in that entire column, which is significant because it's an integrated column. So for us to see positive change, it takes a lot more moisture to get down into those really deep layers. And then across the east, it has been drier. There's been some areas that have picked up, like I said, the convective precipitation during July and the end of June, but overall we did see drier conditions across the northeast and especially West Texas and down into the Roswell area. It's been brutal down there around Chavez County with high temperatures above 100 just about every single day. So that's definitely noted here with the soils drying out.
So the white means no change?
The white means, yeah, relatively no change. So it's like 0 to 2%. It would be masked out, basically. And we can hone in on some of the details here and show just the first 10 centimeters. And this was valid yesterday morning. So 0 to 10 centimeters would be like 4 inches or so. So pretty much like the planting zone, not necessarily the rooting zone, but just real close to the surface. And so this will be more sensitive to recent rainfall. So any heavy rainfall that could occur over like a daily or even a weekly period will show up with some of this.
Because I'm looking at the map where I live, and we got 7/10 of an inch on, what was it, Monday night? Sunday night.
Sunday night. Yeah, and this was yesterday morning. And where is that
Up
around?
north in Alcalde.
Yeah, and so it's responded. So the soil moisture in the first 4 inches, is, it looks like probably 70 to 80% of the volume there is with water compared to soil. So so you can see the Continental Divide was doing really well during a good part of July, and then this area in northern Union County recently saw lots of heavy rainfall as well. And again, the southeast has really dried out from what we were looking at during the spring.
How far back can you go using this?
These folks have an archive on their webpage. I think you can go back pretty far, but I'm not sure how long.
And is it daily?
It's every 3 hours.
Every 3 hours?
Yeah. So, and there's large latency to it, which means like it takes a while for the model to run and pump out the data. So it pulls in satellite data and radar data, surface observations, all kinds of different data. Then they run this model, and then it comes out with what it thinks is going to be the soil moisture value. So when, like yesterday, we saw heavy rainfall across Guadalupe County, and when I looked at the images this morning, you can see the soil moisture responding to the rainfall. So this is good for the short term. Now we can go down a little bit deeper, 0 to 40 centimeters, and so what's interesting here is it's still pretty moist across the northwest when you're looking at the 0 to 40, but if you look at the top 4 inches, it's drying out.
Yeah.
So the precipitation that they received during June is percolating down into the lower layers, but the top layer is drying out. So I think that this will be pretty helpful for us moving forward, looking at the areas that are drying out. So the regional drought status as of July 23rd, again, the focus is really across California, Nevada, Oregon, and they're getting some relief now. They had a trough move through and delivered some cooler air and some more precipitation, but New Mexico continues to improve. We look at the details on the state scale. There's just this tiny little sliver left here on the most recent drought monitor, less than 1% across Catron and is that Grant County? Grant County. Okay. And then 21% in moderate to severe. Let's look at the comparison to 3 months ago. We didn't have any extreme drought 3 months ago, but still now we have a lot less coverage of the severe drought, even since April. Okay, so is there any questions so far on any of the, before we go into the extended? Okay. So here is the most recent El Nino charts. Sea surface temperature on the upper left and sea surface temperature anomaly on the lower left. So let's focus on the lower left image. Typically with El Nino you see these above normal sea surface temperature anomalies expanding westward off South America, and we do see that. We also see this anomalous area of warm temperatures off the Baja, and that's a little different than a typical El Nino state. So there's a much broader area of above normal sea surface temperatures across the equatorial Pacific. Just looking at the last 4 weeks across this Nino region, the anomalies right off the South American coastline are really impressive, like 3 to 3.5 degrees centigrade, so Celsius. So pretty impressive, and this is more typical of what we would see during an El Nino than what we were looking at several months ago. So it's happening. And breaking it down by the different regions, this 1 and 2 region just off the coast, you could see just a few days ago the anomaly was over 3, but it's dropped some in recent days. But generally, everyone above normal. And the Nino 3.4 region is what we're interested in. We're above 1.5, so that would be like a moderate El Nino, although we haven't gone long enough for it to actually be considered that. Again, these are the charts. The red bars are the probability of El Nino for each 3-month period from CPC and IRI. 100% chance as we see the El Nino across the Pacific during the summer, and even as we go through the autumn and the winter, they're calling for a 90 to 95% probability And just taking a peek out here at this last bar, this would be getting us toward the very end of the winter into the spring, still over an 80% probability. And then the bottom right is just the more model-based data. But high probabilities as we go through the winter at least. Another look at this is the forecaster and the model consensus. The most recent, I know this is difficult to see, but the pink bar, the pink line that kind of extends up, it goes over 2, which would be a strong El Nino for at least a few of these months. But overall, every guidance member, forecaster, statistical model, dynamic model, all calling for what looks to be at least a moderate El Nino.
Wow, there's some that are really pegged out at 3
Yeah,
even.
yeah,
More than
yeah,
2.
that would be something else. Yeah. So the outlook as we go through August, next month showing the potential for us to favor above normal precipitation across most of New Mexico, particularly the west, all of Arizona, and into most of Colorado. And as a result, the outlook calls for below normal temperatures across a good portion of our area, which makes sense with increasing moisture and cloud cover. And then the outlook as we go through the remainder of the summer pegs an area right in the Four Corners region for above normal precip chances, but really most of the southwest. And accordingly, the temperature outlook calling for below normal for most of New Mexico. And a sneak peek here at the fall, again, the precipitation outlook favoring above normal precipitation for all of New Mexico and Texas. But look at as we get into January through March, this is a greater than 50% probability of seeing above normal precipitation over nearly the entire southern United States. And looking at the analog studies that folks do when they talk about El Nino and looking at all the different years that we've seen with El Nino conditions, this is right on. I mean, this is exactly the type of pattern that you would see. But I don't recall the last time I've seen this dark green color on an outlook, especially that far out. So this is
so large, it expands, and
Yeah.
50 plus.
So this is good. It'll be, active storm track, potential for lots of winter storms to slide across the area. So just think about all those hazards that are associated with, weekly whacks of winter weather across our state. So it could be a fun winter. And then just looking at the seasonal outlook, as you would expect, improvement across any of the areas, really across far western New Mexico, even into Arizona. So with that, that's all we have here. I'll hand it back to Dave.
All right. Any questions for Brian on any of the products?
This is Richard Hine, the drought monitor author this week. I joined about 5 or 10 minutes into your talk. I wanted to ask some questions about the soil moisture. How big of a problem do you think that soil moisture in the southeast is?
In the southeast, let's see.
I'm going to go back to that. One of those.
What do you mean by problem? When you say problem, do you mean like potential abnormally dry area, or like extending it some, or?
Yeah, but potential introduction of D0S.
Yeah, when I was looking at these this morning, that thought crossed my mind, especially looking at like the 0 to 40, getting down a little bit deeper. I certainly could see it.
You may also want to verify some of these with, I know they're scanned, but they're in the middle of those two brown areas between Roosevelt and Lee County, but there's really no observations right now that I know of that out there, other than maybe at one of Texas Tech's stations that they may have.
Yeah, and the folks over at NASA also indicated that when using the scan and verifying some of this data, we have to be careful because the scan site might not be exactly matching like what the model surface field is, and so it's not necessarily apples to apples, but in general, it could, the observation is going to give you the better data than what a computer
well,
model will throw out.
at least a trend to look at. Has it responded? Is it going drier or wetter? Maybe we could, but that's something area we probably want to keep an eye on for. I'm not sure because it looks like it's going into Texas a bit too.
Yeah, John Nielsen Gammon wasn't that concerned about what was happening out in West Texas, that particular area. But I'm also looking at the other models. The CPC soil moisture, I think, is the leaky bucket. The NLDAS and the VIC model don't have any dryness in southeast New Mexico, in fact, in any part of the state, really, except for a little tiny spot on the top 1 meter soil moisture percentile for the NLDAS, but that's July 23.
Okay, yeah, and then NLDAS 2 actually is going into their rendition of the NOAA Land Service model. So that is part of this. So I'm surprised it didn't show a little bit more.
Well, the NLDAS is 4 days, well, it is to be 25 days old.
Right, 4 days, yeah.
Yeah.
And in the last 4 days, that's, they've seen hundreds plus out in that area.
So I'm not surprised the surface has been drying out. Same with over on the west side. It's been drying out very quickly, but they've been getting some good rains.
So yeah, like you said,
check on the USDA NAS reports when they come out later today and see if they have anything. Otherwise, if I don't put anything in this week, I might forward that information on to the next week's author.
Yeah.
Keep an eye on it.
I would wait this week before we make any changes, bring in a D0. I mean, before we want to verify some of this.
Sure,
first.
and it may end up just popping out again too with
Right.
like widespread 1 to 4 inches out east here in the next few days.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
It's an interesting sliver along the U.S.-Mexico border west of El Paso.
Some model
wrong
there. Downfalls,
But, yeah.
disadvantages come into the data.
But yeah, recently in the Climate Division 2, we've gotten some good. You can see the changes. The blue areas in southern Taos, Rio Arriba, northern Santa Fe County. Does our, just trying to remember now, if our D0 go that far east? It's right on the edge, right on the edge of that. I was just spent all day yesterday up on that right on the edge of that Rio Arriba, Taos, and looked at a lot of the vegetation. I mean, it was my first time going there for a while, so I don't know what it usually looks like.
It's usually dry.
Yeah, it's been
green.
It's been pretty. From my point of view, it's very green up there. I mean, I took photographs of the veg straight down. When next time I go back, I'll look at it again. But like by Tres Piedras and going into the hills to the west, it looked pretty green there.
Yeah, there's a DOT webcam actually on 285 too.
Oh, is there?
And it shows it's green. The sage is all nice and
So what I'm trying to
bright.
say is that little area of D1, we may want to, Richard, you may want to take a look at that area, because I know
this one here.
that area, and I think what we kept it in was because of the long-term drought impacts in that area, and we've kept a lot of that in, and just as a historical, because of the low snowpack and not very much in the Rio Grande Basin, but that little area of D1 may be a let's look at a little further.
What kind of trim it or?
Yeah.
I was looking at the precip for the past week, and there's little area of above normal precip in whatever county that is. The county
The one where the
to the
D1
south
is?
of it. But it was
Sandoval?
below normal, right?
Sandoval.
That one there?
D1. Yeah, that county was above normal.
Yeah.
I could say it's been trimmed reflecting hydrological or other factors as opposed to trimmed due to above normal rainfall this week.
Right, I just don't know, I don't think that area I would consider D1 impacts right at this moment, that the area in Rio Reba.
And most of this area that's in D1 is actually high terrain too.
Yeah,
It's like above 8,000 feet.
yeah, you're right, yeah.
Okay.
Any other impacts? I heard somebody calling from the El Paso office. Considering what we've seen in the across southwest Doniana and most of Luna, what do you? It may.
We have another weird meat guy who's having USDA issues.
Okay, can you speak up? Can barely hear you.
You know what, Matt was actually, they opened the case, so Matt was the lead on that.
It was about a year ago, and it was this. He's
Is
saying
it?
that they're like holding him to like some sort of new standard. It sounds like there's just a regulation he has to comply with.
Oh, I think that's a separate conversation.
Well,
So,
I think we're. I was asking if there's any comment from the El Paso forecast office on the southwest part of the map we're looking at there.
Yeah, I mean, we really don't have anything new. I was on the drought monitor page looking at the yearly change, and that's quite stark. But
Yeah.
as far as the drought, it's pretty, especially West Texas, it's really eased back, and I guess just about all of our CWA except west of the Divide is, doing really good.
Yeah. So I'm not interested in making big changes. I just wanted to respond to some of the maybe the last 30-day impacts to that area. So yeah, Richard, you may want to look at that area as well, that far along the Mexico border.
Like Luna County and Hidalgo
Luna-
County and Anaconda County?
Yeah, I may have been focusing on the close to the interstate, which it's not on there, but it's sort of just a little slightly south of that where the arrow is right now, and that area has been pretty wet. I mean, I've driven through there a few times, and I know what the weeds look like. And this is not along the road, but if you drive off the road, at least the rangelands are responding really, really well. So that
Yeah, I think maybe the interstate corridor west of Deming may be a little dry, but
yeah, I would agree on that one.
The Boot Hill has got a lot of rain lately, especially south of Lordsburg.
Yeah. So you may want to look at the Boot Hill itself.
I saw a picture, somebody tweeted a picture from down there along the interstate of standing water. It was a huge area of standing water. I'd never seen anything like it before down there.
Yeah.
I don't recall where it was. It was
Yeah, it may
somewhere
have
on
been one of
I-10
the
or
playas. Or,
yeah. It was just. It looked like a huge lake.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah, we have time-lapse cameras right on the playa west of Lordsburg, and there has been water, but a lot of it's starting to evaporate, and we're already seeing dust come back already. So that was, things change very rapidly where there's playas, especially if it's not much water, because it's been pretty warm. Out
Yeah,
there.
those playas will hold water for a long time, so that rain could be 3, 4, 5 months old.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, so
We haven't discussed the reservoir status yet, have we?
no,
No,
we'll get there. I just
Okay.
want to get some
Yeah,
initial input on this before we head into that.
Okay.
So I think
Yeah,
Julian
there's
has...
been a lot of discussion offline, especially amongst the authors, but also I think other other participants on the list about improving the conditions in New Mexico. And if you look at the SPI, the precipitation-based indicators, it's really wet out to about 24 months.
Right.
You have to go out to 36 months to see anything on the percent of normal.
And that's why.
So I think what we have been doing is keeping that D1 in there and the D0 to reflect the hydrological conditions, the reservoirs.
Correct.
As well, I'll be anxious to hear what the condition of the reservoirs are.
Right. Yeah, that's the main reason why we've had those, all the drought in D1 and even D0 was because of the hydrologic impacts.
Yeah, but I guess the ultimate question I'll be asking is D0 sufficient to reflect the hydrological impacts on the reservoirs?
Yeah, that's the problem. We had a natural resource legislative meeting yesterday, and we talked about this, and it's sort of the drought monitor is very hard to actually put it into the 0 through 5 scheme because of the time it takes to rebuild a reservoir. We're like, I don't know what, 20% or so of average for some of our large reservoirs, and and that's going to take, even with a strong El Nino,
It's gonna take years.
it's not probably going to be enough to bring it up to average.
Right, more than 1 year.
More than 1 year. So how long do you keep that in there? So that's always that problem we have with the drought monitor, is that. And then, so how much do you weigh the agricultural interests versus all the other interests that are out there, in terms of rangelands and the people living out in those areas, where we may be stuck in this mode for quite some time of low reservoirs, and we may never get back up. Who knows? But I hope not. But it's like we will be always in drought 1 or D0, D1 in these areas. But is that what's how we want to run the drought monitor in these states? And we're not alone in this as well. I mean, like California, some parts of there are snow melt and reservoir based. Whoops, power.
It always says that.
Okay.
Tuesday.
On Tuesday?
Yeah.
So does that make sense, Richard?
Yeah, yes, it does. And we authors have been struggling with this for years and years and years. The drought monitor is one map, but it depicts multiple stuff, especially the conflict between short and long-term drought conditions. How do you show long-term drought when you're in really wet short spell, or really wet short-term conditions, and vice versa? It's really hard.
Yeah.
My personal preference is two drought monitors, but the resources don't allow that.
Yeah, because we haven't really even, in our calls, we really haven't even discussed the groundwater issues with water availability, and that was a focus of yesterday's meeting, was talking about groundwater, and that's a whole other bag of worms that we really should look at. Should be part of our drought monitoring work group is that, and but that's a whole other. That's a lot of work to bring all that in. There's not much data, but I mean, we're showing a lot of these wells in decline, and even with the El Ninos, they haven't recovered some of these. So I don't want to go into that much right now, but just to let you know, it's on our minds. It's on my mind of how do we depict that in these and still make sense and make it so that our neighboring states can make sense of this too.
Yeah.
So I realize I don't have a good answer on how to do that.
Yeah.
We can talk about the reservoir levels and to see if that warrants keeping at least D0. But I think what probably Julie will show, there's been some improvements and some, we'll talk about that, some maybe not. at least since
Okay.
last year.
Okay. I'm not sure if Ray signed on, but I can definitely read the reservoir levels if you need me to.
Okay, actually, that may be a good time to transition into reservoir levels.
Is there a presentation?
I don't think.
I think he just reads them.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
usually, Raymond usually reads them. Is that Curtis? Who said they were going to read them?
Yeah, this is Curtis McFadden.
Okay. Yeah, Curtis, if you have the reservoir storage levels, that would be great. If you.
Okay, yeah, I'll definitely do that. This morning, Heron content was 140,670 acre-feet of water. Elvado, 115,177 acre-feet. Abiquiu, 121,013 acre-feet of water. And Cochiti is sitting at 48,214 acre-feet. And then you would go down south to Elephant Butte is 291,440 acre-feet. And Caballo is 18,029 acre-feet of water. Now in operations on the Rio Grande, it's a continuous river, which is very rare, especially these past 4 years. So that's kind of good news there. With all the afternoon rain showers, it kept the reservoirs at a stable condition. They started releasing storage water last week, so that's very good. MRGCD is slowly leaking out their storage to meet their demands, but basically we've been going off of native waters for all the way until the mid-July, which is a very shocking but surprising and uplifting news on the Rio Grande. So things are doing pretty good. We could definitely feel the effects of this El Nino, and that's all I'm going to say, because when I say it, I usually jinx it. So but it's looking really, I'm sorry. I work on the Pecos Basin. I keep on saying, oh, there's a chance of El Nino, and it's gone. So that's all I'm going to say about that. But everything's looking all right on the Rio Grande. And as for the Pecos, things are starting to dry up a little bit there. But all the reservoirs are pretty full, and actually beyond full, and I'll get to that more often. Santa Rosa's content on the Pecos is 97,512 acre-feet. Fort Sumner, 30,932 acre-feet of water. Brantley, 71,545 acre-feet of water. Now, the Pecos, we had 2 really good September rainfalls, as well as a pretty good snow melt. And I'm just saying, this is still below average snow melt runoff that we had this year, but the spring months has definitely propped up our reservoirs there. Starting in August, we are going to release unappropriated floodwaters out of Brantley, and that's next week. And so we are going to try to pass 35,000 acre-feet of water to Texas, to Red Bluff, and we are full on all the rest of the reservoirs, so we're actually at our allotment level, so we're looking all right. But it is getting dry in the Roswell area, because we do have a reservoir out there in 2 Rivers, and it hasn't seen rain or any significant rain for this past month, so it is getting drier conditions out there.
So,
And do you I'm sorry, do you need me to write? Oh, go ahead.
well, I was wondering, in summary then, it sounds like all the reservoirs, or most of the reservoirs, are pretty full across the state, or are just those that you read in certain basins full?
I could
The
tell
majority of the
you.
reservoirs are in good condition. I wouldn't say they're full. I know that we can definitely have more storage at Elephant Butte. Elephant Butte is the one that's a glaring need for the stuff in New Mexico. But beginning of this year, actually, El Vado and Heron, we were talking that we were not going to fill up our storage capacities there, and they are full. So we do have full allotment from those reservoirs, and so that's kind of a hidden jewel out of the Rio Grande. The Pecos River, Carlsbad Irrigation District cannot store any more water. They're full, they're tapped out, and we're actually trying to release more water to Texas, and that's from our last September rain event down there. So things are in good condition storage-wise, but they could be better. We would love to have 2 good, winter storms and good snowmelt events so we can actually have that water down to Elephant Butte and get that storage capacity up. Okay, thanks. Yeah, no problem. And then Navajo storage is 1,463,121 acre feet. And that one's surprising late uptick from all the spring and early summer rain events in the San Juan.
So you said that one has increased a bit? Or
It has increased.
has?
Yes. Yeah. And that's just all because of the late spring and early summer snowfall and rain event in that general area.
So after Texas takes the water out of Brantley, how much is going to be left? So they're taking what you said, 35,000?
Correct. And ultimately, Texas is going to probably get additional 15,000 acre feet of water, just so we can just stay in the positive. So we don't owe Texas water for the next couple of years. But Brantley should be around that 40,000 to 30,000 acre feet range of storage.
That's after the transfer?
Correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. That's correct. And that release is going to be at a slow release, about 600 to 1,000 acre feet of, not acre feet, 600 to 1,000 CFS release for about 2 months.
Okay. All right, any questions for Curtis?
I
Okay.
appreciate it, guys. I'm in California where it's dry, so I'm going to hang up, and if you have any questions, shoot me an email, and I will definitely answer.
Okay, well, enjoy your time there, and I really appreciate
Thank you.
you giving us some numbers. Thank you.
No problem. Take care. Have a great one.
Okay. So let's. I didn't hear if Chris Haynes was on the line or not. I didn't think he was on. Did you get any?
No.
Brian, anything from the? Okay. All right. And I think there was a USGS. Is Anne Marie on, or did we just?
Anne-Marie's in a meeting.
Oh.
She's in a meeting, but I'll just quickly go through the stream flow conditions for her.
Okay. Who is this?
This is Shailene.
Oh, Shailene. Okay.
That's this one
Could
here.
we have you talk a little louder, Shailene? Because I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing.
Okay, I'm just going to quickly go through the stream flow conditions for Anne Marie. And this is for the 2015 water year from October 2014 till through June 2015. And these are going to be presented as a percent of the average stream flow, which is a percent of the cumulative average stream flow for the water year. There's a table that I'm going to be referring to, and the numbers that I mentioned will be the map ID numbers.
Can't turn it up anymore.
for 21 New Mexico River basins, and these represent relatively unmanaged natural flow conditions. So for the water year through June, 12 of the 21 stations that are listed in the table were at or above average stream flow, and the high was for Poniel Creek near Cimarron, and that was at 593% of the average. And the Rio Ojo Caliente was the low, and that was about 64% of the historic average. The median annual average was about 91%, and that was slightly up from 86% of the historical average for the 21 basins. And I'll just quickly go through the runoff conditions by basin. So for the San Juan River Basin, that's number 19 on the table. That was at 110% of average, and that was up from last month from 81%. And the Upper Rio Grande tributaries, those are number 7 through number 12, the Rio Pueblo de Taos to Santa Cruz River. Those were 64 to 98% of average. The Jemez River, number 13, that was 77% of average, and that was only slightly up from 74%. The Upper Rio Grande main stem, that's number 9, the Rio Grande at Taos Junction Bridge, that was at 89% of average. For the Canadian River Basin, the tributaries in Colfax County, those are numbers 1, 2, and 3 on the table. Those were at between 91 and 593% of average. And those were the rivers that showed the greatest change in percent average. The tributaries in Mora County, number 5 and 6, the Mora River and Coyote Creek, those were at 73 and 92% of average. The main stem Canadian River, number 4, that was at about 71% of the historic average for this gauge, and that was only slightly up from 61% last month. The Upper Pecos in San Miguel County, those are number 14 and number 15, which are the Pecos River near Pecos and the Guaymas Montezuma. Those are at 88% and 109% of average. For the Lower Pecos in Otero and Eddy County, number 16, number 17, and number 18, those have stream flow conditions that range from 67 to 144% of average. And these were up from 84 to 166% of average. The Gila Basin for Grant County, sites number 20 and 21. For the Mogollon Creek, that's at 84% of average. And the Gila at Red Rock has stream flow conditions that are at 85% of average. And that's down slightly from the 98% of average from last month. And I think that's it.
All right, thanks Shailene. Any questions from the stream flow conditions? All right. Okay, so let's go on to item number 6. The Office of State Engineer, and Julie will be presenting.
Okay, so this is our presentation. Curtis went over all the, actually gave the numbers. What we want to do is show you visually where the numbers are now and where they were last month and the average. So you'll visually see that. So we got our data from the current conditions from yesterday from the USACE, and for the previous month they are from June 22nd from our last meeting. Except for you, Reservoir, we get those from the NRCS, and those are from yesterday as well. So we can move on to this. So this will just show us, illustrates the current conditions in dark blue The red bar is the average, and the dotted green line is the last month's. And last year's is in the kind of like a brown background, so you can visually see where they were last year. So the first reservoir we're going to look at is going to be Navajo, and Navajo is actually, in compared to last month, it's up a little bit, and from last year it's up almost 300,000 acre feet. So that Navajo is doing fairly well in comparison to some of our other reservoirs. Next slide. Ute Reservoir, and I'll go over numbers if you want. Again, I can reiterate those. So 158,000, with the average being 168,000 acre feet, and that's slightly up from last month and slightly up from last year. So that one's kind of remaining the same. There's not much change there. Next slide. Santa Rosa, as you can see, is well above average and doing a lot better than it was last year. Right now it's at 97,000 acre feet. Last year it was only at about 50,000 acre feet. Sumner, 31,000 acre feet. Last year it was at 25, so we are doing better. A little bit different, less than last year, but not much. 3,000 acre feet. And I'm guessing it's due, they're probably just releasing water for irrigation purposes. Next slide. Brantley, that one is really doing well. As Curtis said, I think they're trying to release and not store, because that one is, I think, one of the best ones we have. Level 71,000 acre feet, and last year was at 23,000, so. Next slide. I won't go over the numbers, I guess, in detail, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Heron, we'll just kind of compare to the average. It's well below the average. I think the reservoirs between Heron and Alvado and Elephant Butte, these are probably the reservoirs that haven't had that much impact from we didn't have the snowfall, so they're not storing that much, and then they're having to start releasing, so we're not going to see those store as much water. We can move on to the next one. Alvado, it's doing better than Heron, but still way below the average. Same thing with Abiquiu. Not a whole lot of change even from last month. Elephant Butte, this is by far the worst one we have in the state. The current level is 294,000. Last year it was at 226, so we're just doing a little bit better, not much. But the average is, and I'm saying it's 1,277,000 acre feet. So it's going to take a long time before that reservoir even gets close to being at the average. Next slide. And Caballo as well is not doing as well as some of the other reservoirs on the Pecos. We're currently at 18,000 acre feet. Last year it was at 30, so it's not doing, it's worse off than it was last year. And the average is 104,000 acre feet. And this just kind of summarizes all the levels and gives you your current year, the last year average and the previous month in just a tabulated form. And then next slide, and I think that's it. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Yeah, just to summarize, Richard, the reservoirs in the southwest are well below average. The reservoirs in the east and north, if I got my geography right, seem to be near average or better.
So the reservoirs the reservoirs on the Pecos River seem to be average or doing pretty well, but the reservoirs up north, which are Heron, Alvado, Abiquiu, are still below average, and they haven't been able to store as much. I think it's because they have to release. And then the two down southwest, which is Elephant Butte and Caballo, are way below average, and those are the two worst reservoirs we have right now in the state.
Yeah, the Rio Grande just isn't doing as well as
the Pecos. Because
Okay, so,
what happened was
yeah, so,
sorry.
go ahead.
Well, last
Go ahead.
spring, I don't know if everyone recalls how much rain they got on the Pecos, and that is what helped fill a lot of those reservoirs. Maybe it was.
Last fall.
Oh,
In the-
sorry,
yeah,
it was in the fall, not in the
Yeah.
spring.
Two falls in a row.
Yeah.
Two falls in a row.
Yeah, but the two reservoirs in the southwest being so low, I'd be reluctant to do anything with that D1 down there in the southwest.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and keep that where it is.
I think they're stopping water in the Rincon part next week.
Yeah, they said Hatch is going to be shut off on July 31st, and then
Oh, well, that's this week.
yeah, and then August 18th or 20th, Mesilla Valley will be shut off. So right now they have 11 acre inches of allocation. That's their final. That's compared to that's for the year, for the whole irrigation. That's compared to 36. What that is considered a normal irrigation. So 11 out of 36. So still in bad shape for irrigators. And I think last time I heard from the EBID, there's still considerable amount of fallow acreage. Nobody really has track of how many acres. I don't know if anybody's really looked at that, but I just qualitatively there's considerable amount. So just to make note of that with that, the long-term impacts. Any other questions for Julie? Want to move this back? I don't hang up. I've done that before. All right. Okay. So let's move on to the next item on the agenda, NMDA, New Mexico Department of Agriculture. I think, Les, are you on?
Yes, I'm still here.
All right.
I'm still here.
Is that this one?
I agree with y'all what you're saying. I kind of maintaining that drought indication for the Southwest just because of the low reservoir levels. It's certainly the higher costs of groundwater pumping to supplement the meager supply of surface water, I think, warrants that. And of course, like somebody said earlier, that's a long-term deal, and it's going to take a lot of years to get those reservoirs, Elephant Butte and Caballo, back to normal. And I don't know how that is certainly a challenge in dealing with how to reflect that in the drought monitor, but it certainly is an ongoing impact to the producers down here. As far as the remainder of the state range conditions, things are certainly a lot better than they have been. The report that I sent, just a quick recap of it. The good to excellent for pasture and range makes up 57%. And you compare that to last year, where 65% was in poor to very poor, and our 5-year average was 68% in the poor to very poor. It's indicative that the rangelands have responded to the precip, and they're looking pretty good. There are a few areas in the state that just haven't quite received the precipitation, and it's they're a little brown. I really enjoyed looking at the soil moisture maps that y'all pulled up driving up and down the interstate to Albuquerque and some other areas in central New Mexico, and I've noticed a couple little, especially in Socorro County, between Tier C and Socorro, there's a pretty good chunk of country in there that doesn't look very good, and it certainly is indicated on that 0 to 10 and 0 to 40 centimeter soil moisture maps. That seems like a really good product. But for the most part, the cattle are fat and happy, and a lot of the ranchers are too. So beyond that, I don't really have anything specific unless anybody has any questions.
Yeah, this is Richard. I'm looking at the days suitable for fieldwork and soil moisture condition table that you have part of displayed. And the topsoil moisture short and very short is at 52%. That seems like a lot.
That does. I'm not exactly sure how that
Move down just a bit.
is calculated there. from looking up the soil moisture maps that were up earlier, they didn't necessarily seem to track with that. So I'm not sure
Yeah.
if there's a hiccup in the model that they use for this, or where that comes from.
Yeah, 39% subsoil, short and very short. Well, these are kind of, as I understand it, subjective observations that are
Yes,
fed into
yeah.
the USDA.
I think, I believe so. These are, mainly done by a phone survey and exactly what you said, what a subjective observation by folks out in the field. So it could be that they called the person that's been missing out on the rain too. That's
Call the fat and happy people first.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what was the condition of the pastures and rangeland again?
From the NAS report, it's got 57% in the good to excellent statewide, with 32 in fair. So just, we've only got 11% that's classified in the poor to very poor. And I, from what I've seen driving around the windshield survey, that seems pretty accurate.
So the impacts on agriculture are not very bad. Even if the soil moisture very short numbers are that high, it's not showing up in the ag, in the pastures and crops.
In pasture and rangeland, I think the numbers there under the pasture and range section are pretty indicative of how that is, and that directly relates to to how the range cattle, how the ranching industry is doing. I think the main impacts in New Mexico right now, as far as ag is concerned, is the lack of surface water for irrigation, and that is mainly again down here in the southwest, south central part of the state.
Talking about for a long time.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Les?
This is Ollie Reed with the Albuquerque Journal. Yes, sir, Les, could you break down those percentages for me again on the good to excellent and fair to good, etc.?
For the pasture and range, okay.
Yes, sir.
Let's see. Do you want the very poor is at 4%.
Very poor is 4. Okay.
Poor is at 7%.
Something else.
Fair is at 32%. Good at 45.
It's not on here.
And excellent at 12.
Okay, excellent at 12, good at 45, fair at 32, poor at 7, and very poor at 4.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
You bet.
There was another page.
I
Sorry.
thought the other page was just climate data.
Yeah, sometimes the second page is
Yeah.
just weather.
Yeah.
But they actually put some data
Yeah.
in, which is
I
good.
haven't seen that before.
Yeah.
I like this report.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Les.
You bet. Thank you.
Much appreciated again. Let's move on to the Susan Rich. Are you on?
Yeah, I am.
Great.
Great.
You're on.
Hello, everybody. I have a positive report as well for this month. We overall have had a pretty good fire season, meaning good for us not having a lot of big fires. Conditions are pretty typical for a normal,
I got a report from her.
in quotes, summer monsoon season. As of July 24th, which was the last data I was able to get, New Mexico's had 213 fires that have affected 8,870 acres of state and private lands. That's from January 1st through July 21st. And those are called statistical fires. Those are the fires that New Mexico State Forestry is responsible for responding to suppression. Since the first of the year, on all lands, there have been 481 fires affecting 36,317 acres. And because of our relatively slow fire season here, we've been able to send our firefighting crews and engines to assist with suppression efforts elsewhere, mainly in the state of Washington. Our significant fire potential for New Mexico, and that term actually is defined as the likelihood that a fire event will require the mobilization of additional resources from outside of this area. So our significant fire potential in most of New Mexico is listed as little to no risk, and in the northwest corner in that far central eastern plains, it's low risk of significant fire activity. So overall, things are been really good for us here. Short and sweet this month.
Nice. So was that there was I saw when I was driving down Sunday, there was a fire at the Bosque over by the Fort Craig, I think, was it? Fort Craig.
Yeah, I think I saw something that our Socorro district, or we may have had IWC, that the inmate crews respond to that, but I can't tell you for sure. I just heard that kind of through the grapevine. If you want to know about it, I can look it up and get back to you.
That was just an observation.
Yeah.
Is that
we're
a sign of...
popping fires here and there, but nothing's getting big.
Yeah, that's in really low numbers in terms of the acres and numbers. It's good.
Yeah, before the call, I was trying to quick look up our numbers for last year and the year before to confirm, but I wasn't able to grab them.
Okay.
But it's just so much better.
Right. Yeah, I know, like some years, single fires were that number.
Yeah.
Good. Very, very, very nice. Well, any questions?
Forest Health, I forgot to tell you.
Okay, go
I
ahead.
didn't get a report this month because this is the month where our Forest Health specialist is up in the air with the Forest Service people flying aerial surveys. So he does that all summer, and then we'll come back with a real nice solid report in the fall. But if I hear from him, I'll throw in something on the written report about what the trends are, but chances are I won't hear until he's done with those surveys later in August.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you. Alrighty, moving on. If there's either Joylyn or Emelita, I did not hear them on the call. And okay. Alrighty. Oops, I need to get any other topics of interest that we need to talk about, discussion. Any other questions? Richard, are you still on?
Yeah, I'm still on. I thought I'd just comment on, if I can pull it up here, the GRACE observations of groundwater have wet conditions in the northern tier counties, and actually the groundwater in the southwest is showing up as blue, and dry conditions in the southeast, south central towards the central part of the state, a little bit, a few pixels are brown on in the west central part of the state. Of course, we know the NASA GRACE-based groundwater is based upon differences in two satellites, that differences in the gravity effect on the satellites due to different concentrations of water deep in the earth. So it's not really a direct measurement. It's kind of an indirect measurement, but it gives us information in a way and at a spatial scale that we just don't have otherwise. So it's very interesting. I'm not really sure how to depict that, so I think I'm just noting it as an observation. And
so do you have it in
Mexico?
Do you have it in front of you?
Pardon me?
Do you have the map in front of you? What is it showing on the western border with Arizona? Excuse me.
It's let's see if I can guesstimate where the counties are. I would say right around Catherine County towards Grant County. Yeah, about where that D2 is. There's some dry conditions indicated on the GRACE groundwater.
Okay.
and probably around Torrance County and towards Valencia, maybe northern Socorro, there's some dryness.
Okay.
And towards the southeast, towards Lee and Eddy County, Donna Ana, Otero County, there's indications of dryness.
Okay.
Going up to Baca at Guadalupe, groundwater is indicated as dry.
All right.
But the surface conditions are a lot better out there, except for the southeast where the sport is showing some drying.
Okay. We'll take a look at that as well. So Richard, do you have enough for your work for us? I know you've been here more than an hour out of your day. Does that help you?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
I think I'm going to not make a whole lot of change. I'll probably trim, if not eliminate, the D1 in Rio Arriba based upon impacts, soil moisture. But the reservoirs in the southwest are still an issue, so I don't see making any changes there. And I probably won't make any other changes simply because this week was dry over a large part of the state.
Needs a rainfall where there's already zero.
Yeah.
Or not, D not. Okay.
Yeah. As authors, we generally tend to want to make changes where we had some really good heavy rains, above normal rains, and not make changes where there were a lot of heavy rains. I mean, not show expanding drought where there are a lot of heavy rains,
Right.
and not show improving drought where there weren't any rains.
Right. Makes sense. Okay. Any other questions? Any other topics of discussion before we move on to the scheduling?
Okay, well, thank you all.
Thanks, Richard.
Thanks.
So in August, get your calendars out. We get our updates from CPC on the 20th, and we traditionally have our meetings either right after that on the following week. So what about the 25th of August? Will that work for folks?
Works for me.
I see shaking heads, nodding heads.
It's the best day possible.
Okay.
Actually, for me.
Okay.
It's like the only day.
Only day? Cool, good. So let's schedule our next drought monitoring work group call at August 25th at 10 a.m. And if there's any other things come up, please email them to Brian and myself, and we can circulate that around to the list. So very good. I really appreciate you guys hanging in there for hour and 15 minutes plus, and thank you. And we'll talk to you next month, or if you go to the drought task force, we'll see you in a few days. Okay.
Thanks.
See you guys.
What date and time is that set for?
The task force?
7th, August 7th.
August 7th.
9
at
the
9 a.m.
Capitol, right?
at the Roundhouse.
Okay.
I'm not sure what room, but
I don't know either.
yeah.
Brian, this is Ollie at the Journal. Will you be sending out slides later today to complement this session this morning?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Yeah.